Back in 2010, a movie came out that millions of people thought was just a simple remake of an old favorite. A young kid, a new country, and a wise teacher showing him the way. But the truth behind The Karate Kid is so much bigger, so much wilder, and honestly so much more surprising than anything you saw on that screen. Jaden Smith, who played Dre Parker, did not just show up and pretend to know Kung Fu. He trained every single day for months. The whole movie was filmed in a country that most child actors had never even visited before. Real Kung Fu masters were brought in to make sure every move looked exactly right. And then there is the drama. Behind the cameras, things got complicated in ways that nobody expected. But that is only the start of it. From heartbreaking personal stories to battles over the movie's title, this film is hiding secrets that will completely change the way you see it. So today, let us get into 15 shocking facts about The Karate Kid 2010. Number 15. Jaden Smith trained for real. No shortcuts, no stunt doubles. When you watch Jaden Smith kick and punch his way through this movie, you might think a lot of that was camera tricks or stunt doubles doing the hard parts. But here is the truth. Almost none of it was faked. Jaden Smith trained seriously for this film. Not for a few days, not for a couple of weeks. He trained for months before a single camera was ever turned on. The studio hired real Kung Fu coaches to work with him, and they did not go easy on him just because he was a kid. Every morning started with stretching, strength work, and practicing the same movements over and over again until his body could do them without even thinking. Imagine being 12 years old and waking up every single day knowing that you had hours of intense physical training ahead of you. That was Jaden's life during the making of this film. He had to learn how to kick high, move fast, and make it all look smooth and natural under bright camera lights. Some of the moves he learned were so advanced that even trained adults struggle with them. His coaches said he was a dedicated student who worked hard and never gave up, even when his body was tired and sore. And here is the part that makes it even more impressive. Jaden performed most of his own stunts during the actual filming. The production team built in safety measures and had professionals nearby at all times. But when you see Jaden throwing kicks in that final tournament, that is really him. He put in the work, and it shows. Number 14. The movie was filmed entirely in China. This might sound obvious once you know the story is set in Beijing, but think about what it actually means for a Hollywood production to pack up and move an entire film crew to China. That is not a small thing. That is a massive, complicated, incredibly expensive decision that changed everything about how this movie was made. The filmmakers chose to shoot the entire project on location in China, and they did not just stay in one city. The production traveled to some of the most beautiful and breathtaking places in the whole country. The famous Forbidden City, the Great Wall of China. There's the stunning mountains of Wudang. These are real places that you are seeing in the background of this film. No green screens, no fake sets, no studio tricks. The real thing. Filming in China came with challenges that nobody could have fully prepared for. Language differences made communication harder on set. Local permits had to be arranged for filming at national landmarks. The weather and environment were completely different from what a Hollywood crew was used to. And moving equipment, cast, and crew across such a large country required an enormous amount of planning. But the decision paid off in a huge way. The scenery gave the movie a feeling that no American studio could have ever created. When Dre and Mr. Han drive up to that mountain, and you see the mist hanging over those peaks, that beauty is completely real. It brought a sense of magic to the story that made audiences feel like they had been transported somewhere truly special. Number 13. Jackie Chan did not want to play Mr. Han at first. Jackie Chan is one of the biggest action stars the world has ever seen. His movies have made billions of dollars across his career. So when Sony came to him about playing Mr. Han in The Karate Kid, you would think he jumped at the chance right away. But that is not what happened at all. Jackie Chan was actually hesitant about taking the role. His concern was not about the money or the schedule. It was about the character itself. Mr. Han is a quiet, broken, and deeply sad man when we first meet him. He is grieving. He carries a painful loss with him every single day, and he has shut himself off from the world because of it. For Jackie Chan, yes, a man famous for playing energetic, funny, and high-energy characters, stepping into a role like that was a huge departure. Chan worried that audiences would not accept him in a serious, emotional role. He had built his entire career on a certain kind of performance, and Mr. Han was the opposite of that. The character required stillness, vulnerability, and quiet pain, things that Chan rarely showed on screen. But the filmmakers kept talking to him. They explained their vision for Mr. Han and why they believed Chan was the right person to bring that kind of depth to the story. Eventually, he agreed to try it, and what he delivered turned out to be one of the most praised performances of his entire career. Many critics pointed out that Mr. Han was the emotional heart of the film. Yes, and that Jackie Chan surprised everyone with how powerfully he played it. Number 12. The title caused a huge controversy. Here is something that might genuinely shock you. The movie is called The Karate Kid, but Dre Parker never does karate. Not once, not even close. The martial art taught in this film is Kung Fu, which is a completely different discipline with its own techniques, history, and philosophy. Karate comes from Japan and Okinawa. Kung Fu is Chinese. These are two very different things, and martial arts fans around the world were furious about it. When the title was announced, the backlash started almost immediately. Martial arts experts, fans of the original film, and people who understood the difference between these two disciplines all spoke up loudly. They felt the title was disrespectful and misleading. Some even said it showed that the studio did not care enough to get the basic facts right. Online forums were flooded with complaints. News articles covered the controversy. It became a genuine public debate before the movie even came out. The filmmakers and studio defended the decision by saying the title was chosen for brand recognition. People around the world knew the name Karate Kid. It was iconic. Changing it to something like The Kung Fu Kid, which was actually the title used in some other countries when the film was released there, would have meant giving up decades of built-up name recognition. Whether you agree with that decision or not, one thing is certain. The argument it started was very real, and it never fully went away. Even today, people bring it up when discussing the movie. Number 11. Eine Jackie Chan's heartbreaking scene was partly real. There is a moment in this film that hits harder than almost anything else in it. Mr. Han, drunk and alone, is seen hitting his car over and over again. He is completely broken. And then we learn why. He lost his wife and his son in a car accident, and the car is the one he was driving that day. It is one of the most devastating scenes in the whole movie. What many people do not know is that Jackie Chan brought something very personal to that scene. Chan has spoken in interviews about carrying his own private pain through his life and career. While his specific grief is different from Mr. Han's, he understood what it felt like to live with deep sadness that you hide from the rest of the world. He channeled those real feelings into that performance. The director reportedly gave Chan a lot of freedom during the filming of that scene and encouraged him to explore it without too many restrictions. What ended up on screen came largely from Chan himself. The way he moved, the way he breathed, the silence between his actions. It was not just acting. There was something real underneath it. Audiences and critics noticed. That single scene became one of the most talked about moments of the film, and many people said it was the moment they stopped seeing Jackie Chan the action star and started seeing Jackie Chan the actor. Number 10. Will Smith was involved. Far more than most people realize. Everyone knows that Jaden Smith is Will Smith's son, and most people assume Will had something to do with getting Jaden the role, but the truth goes much deeper than that. Yet Will Smith was not just a supportive dad cheering from the sidelines. He was one of the producers of this entire film. Through his production company, Overbrook Entertainment, Will Smith was involved in making this movie from very early on. He helped develop the project, worked with the studio on key decisions, and made sure the production had the resources it needed. He was in meetings, he was on set, and he was part of the team shaping the overall vision for the film. This led to some controversy. Critics and industry insiders questioned whether Jaden would have gotten this opportunity if his father had not been one of the most powerful stars in Hollywood. It was a fair question, and it sparked a larger conversation about nepotism in the entertainment industry, a debate that continues today in a big way. But supporters pointed out that once Jaden had the role, he had to earn every frame of it with his own hard work. No amount of Hollywood connections could make a 12-year-old pull off those fight sequences without putting in the real effort. And by all accounts, he did exactly that. Number 9. The iconic jacket on, jacket off scene was almost cut think. About the most memorable part of the original 1984 Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. It was so simple, so strange, and yet so unforgettable. Everyone who saw that film never forgot it. So when the filmmakers sat down to create the 2010 version, They knew they had to find their own version of that moment. What they came up with was jacket on, jacket off. Mr. Han makes Dre do the same boring thing over and over again. Pick up your jacket, put on your jacket, drop your jacket, hang it up. I do it again. From Dre's point of view, this is pointless. He came to learn Kung Fu, not to practice hanging up his clothes. He gets frustrated, he argues, he nearly quits. But here is the thing. During early test screenings, some viewers did not connect with this scene. They found it less satisfying than the classic wax on, wax off. Some people in the editing room even suggested shortening it or changing it. There were real discussions about whether it landed the way the filmmakers hoped. The decision was made to keep it as intended, and it turned out to be one of the best choices in the whole movie. When Mr. Han finally reveals that every single one of those jacket movements is a real Kung Fu defensive technique, the audience gets the same kind of aha moment that fans of the original felt decades before. It became a signature scene that people still talk about today. Number 8. The final tournament was filmed. Over several weeks, when you watch the tournament at the end of the film, it looks like a fast and exciting event. Each fight builds on the last, and the whole thing feels like it flows together naturally. But behind the scenes, shooting that tournament was one of the biggest logistical challenges of the entire production. The tournament sequences took multiple weeks to film. They required hundreds of extras playing audience members, dozens of young actors playing competing fighters, and a huge amount of coordination to make sure every match looked both authentic and cinematic. Stunt coordinators and Kung Fu consultants were on set every single day to guide the action. And Jaden Smith had to stay in peak physical condition throughout that entire stretch because he was performing real movement in nearly every scene. Anytime his energy dipped or his form slipped, it showed on camera, so the pressure was constant. The production also had to manage continuity carefully. Since the tournament was shot out of order over many days, the team had to keep detailed notes on every costume, every hairstyle, every bruise and cut on each character's face to make sure everything matched up correctly in the final edit. One mistake could make a scene feel completely wrong to a careful viewer. The result of all that hard work is a finale that genuinely delivers. The crowd goes crazy, the fights feel real, and the emotion hits like it is supposed to. Number 7. China's government was closely involved in the production. When a major Hollywood studio decides to film inside China, especially at locations like the Great Wall and the Forbidden City, it does not just show up and start rolling cameras. The Chinese government has strict rules about what can and cannot be shown, and how the country is represented on screen. For The Karate Kid, the filmmakers had to work closely with Chinese government officials and cultural consultants throughout the production. Approval was needed to film at certain locations. Scripts and story elements were reviewed to make sure nothing was considered disrespectful or politically sensitive. The portrayal of Chinese culture, people, and traditions had to meet certain standards before filming was permitted at national landmarks. This kind of government involvement in a Hollywood film was unusual at the time, and it raised questions about creative freedom. Some critics argued that the movie presented an overly positive, almost glossy version of China without showing any of the complexities or challenges of life there. Others said that the film did a genuinely respectful job of celebrating Chinese culture without turning it into a tourist brochure. What is undeniable is that the cooperation between the production and Chinese authorities opened doors that had never been opened for a Hollywood film before. Some of the locations seen in this movie had rarely, if ever, been filmed by a major Western production. That access made the film look extraordinary. Number 6. One of the young villain actor trained, just as hard as Jaden. When people think about the training that went into this film, they almost always focus on Jaden Smith. But here is something that often gets overlooked. The young actor who played Chung, the main villain, went through the same grueling preparation. Zhenwei Wang, who played Chung, was already a trained martial artist before he was cast. He had a background in wushu, which is a competitive form of Chinese martial arts that involves incredibly precise and athletic movements. But even with that existing skill, he still had to train specifically for the film and learn how to perform in a way that worked for the camera, while also making his character feel genuinely threatening. The fight choreographers had to design sequences where Chung looked powerful enough to be a believable threat to Dre, without making it seem impossible that a trained boy could eventually overcome him. That balance required careful planning and both actors had to rehearse their shared scenes together many times to make the physical storytelling feel right. Wong's performance is one of the most underappreciated parts of this film. A good villain makes the hero's journey mean something, and Chung does exactly that. The fact that both the hero and the villain brought real athletic ability to the screen is a big reason why the fights look so spectacular. Number 5. The movie broke box office records for a remake. When The Karate Kid opened in June 2010, the expectations were not sky high. Remakes of beloved classics are always risky. Yes, audiences tend to be protective of the originals, and critics often pick apart everything that is different. On top of that, the film was asking people to accept a 12-year-old as its leading man in a physically demanding role. But something surprising happened. The movie opened to over $55 million in its first weekend in North America alone. That was one of the biggest opening weekends ever for a remake of a classic film. Globally, the numbers were even more impressive. The Karate Kid went on to earn over $350 million worldwide, making it one of the most successful films of the entire summer. Those numbers shocked Hollywood. Studios had not expected a family film built around a child actor and a beloved but older property to perform at that level. The success of the film changed conversations inside the industry about remakes, about international productions, and about what young audiences were willing to show up and watch. It also proved something about Jackie Chan that many people had wondered about for years, that he could carry a serious dramatic role in a major commercial film and still connect with a wide audience. Number 4. There was real tension over Jaden's age and the role's demands. Behind the scenes, there were genuine concerns raised about the demands being placed on Jaden Smith, given how young he was during production. Jaden was 12 years old when filming began. The physical training schedule was intense. The hours on set were long. Filming in a foreign country far from home added another layer of difficulty to an already challenging situation. Since while Will Smith was present on set for portions of the production, there were periods where Jaden had to push through exhaustion and the normal emotional challenges that come with being a child far from his regular life. People who worked on the film have described Jaden as resilient and focused, but also acknowledged that the production asked a lot of someone his age. This raised larger questions that the industry was already starting to grapple with at the time, about child actors, about how young is too young for certain kinds of physically demanding work, and about the responsibility that studios and parents share in protecting children in high-pressure entertainment environments. None of this reached the level of a formal controversy during production, but conversations about it happened. And they added to the already complicated story behind what looked like a straightforward family film. Number 3. The original Karate Kid's star had strong feelings about the remake. Ralph Macchio, the actor who played Daniel LaRusso in the original 1984 Karate Kid, was not silent about the remake. He made his feelings known publicly, and they were not entirely warm. Macchio expressed concern about the decision to use the same title for a film that was set in a completely different country, featured a different martial art, and starred a much younger child. He felt that calling it The Karate Kid was confusing, and that it used the goodwill of the original without fully honoring what made it special. He was protective of the legacy that he had been a part of. And he worried that a high-profile remake with big names behind it might overshadow or cheapen the original in the public's memory. His comments were picked up by entertainment media and added fuel to the controversy that was already burning around the title choice. Fans of the original rallied behind Macchio, and many went into the theater already skeptical because of his concerns. Macchio has been more measured about the film in interviews over the years, acknowledging that Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan delivered solid performances. But his initial public hesitation became part of the story surrounding the film's release, and it is impossible to fully separate the 2010 version from the complicated relationship it has with its 1984 predecessor. Number 2. Pat Morita's family watched closely, and they had thoughts. Pat Morita played Mr. Miyagi in the original Karate Kid films, and his performance became one of the most beloved in Hollywood history. He was nominated for an Academy Award for the role, which was a remarkable achievement for a supporting performance in what many considered a popcorn movie. Morita passed away in 2005, just 5 years before the remake came out. His family was still very much alive, very much aware, and very much paying attention. Members of Morita's family commented publicly on the remake, particularly on Jackie Chan stepping into a role that Morita had made legendary. While they were generally gracious, there was an underlying message in some of their statements. The hope that the new film would honor the spirit of what Morita had created, rather than simply replacing it. This put Jackie Chan in a difficult position. He was not just playing a new character, he was playing a character that existed in direct comparison to one of the most warmly remembered performances in movie history. Every choice he made as Mr. Han would be measured against Mr. Miyagi. Every quiet moment, every piece of wisdom shared with his student, every emotional beat would be judged against what Morita had done. The fact that Chan pulled it off as well as he did, earning genuine praise from critics and audiences alike, made the achievement even more remarkable when you consider the weight of expectation he was carrying. Number 1. The movie sparked a real debate about cultural representation that still matters today. Of all the conversations that The Karate Kid 2010 started, the most important and the most lasting one is about cultural representation. The film placed a young Black American boy at the center of a story set in China, surrounded by Chinese culture, Chinese people, and Chinese martial arts. And it asked audiences to watch him learn, grow, and ultimately triumph within that world. For some viewers, this was a beautiful story of cultural exchange and human connection crossing borders. They saw a film that celebrated Chinese culture in a respectful and genuine way, while also telling a universal story about hard work, perseverance, and finding your place in an unfamiliar world. But for others, the film raised uncomfortable questions. Why was the story told primarily through the eyes of an outsider? Why did the Chinese characters, including the wise teacher, exist largely to serve the growth of a character who came from somewhere else? Yet critics pointed out a pattern that runs through many Western films set in non-Western countries. The idea that local cultures and people are best understood through the journey of someone who arrives from outside. These conversations grew louder in the years after the film came out, as Hollywood began to seriously reckon with questions of representation, diversity, and whose stories get centered. The Karate Kid 2010 became one of the movies that people pointed to when discussing those issues, for better and for worse. The debate is not settled. It probably never will be. But the fact that a big summer family movie could spark that kind of real and lasting conversation says something about how much more this film was than just a fun remake. And that is it. 15 shocking, surprising, and jaw-dropping facts about The Karate Kid 2010. If you made it all the way to the end, smash that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video like this one. Got a movie you want us to dig into next? Drop it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.